Hey guys, welcome back to another PlanetMithril paint, and today we'll be showing you how to paint the Second Age men of Numenor, a proud and noble race of men who took up arms with their elven allies in the battle which culminated in the overthrowing of Sauron and eventually led to the events of the War of the Ring. Without further delay, please sit back, relax and enjoy the video. To start off, we base coated the face and hands with Bugman's Glow. Most Numenorians have gloves on, but we wanted to add a splash more colour by leaving their hands exposed. Apply an all-over layer now with a mix of Bugman's Glow and Cadian Flesh Tone. Make sure to get in all the nooks and crannies around the helmet inner and inside the mouth. Once the wash is dry, relayer with the previous Bugman's Glow Cadian Flesh Tone mix, leaving the right clan flesh shade showing in the recesses around the nose, chin, eyebrow areas and between the fingers. Now apply a layer with pure Cadian Flesh Tone. Focus now on defining the more pronounced facial features, including the nose, exposed chin, brow, cheekbones and knuckle joints. The Numenorian faces are generally quite expressive, so finding where to place these highlights will be easy. Finally, apply a dot highlight with Kislev Flesh on the most pronounced tips of facial detail. Once this is done, you can fill in the eyes with Abaddon Black and Pallid Witch Flesh. Base coat the decals on the shield, inner helmet area, sword blade, arm and leg guards, and chainmail with lead belcher. You have the freedom to chop and change where you'd like the silver areas to be with these models, but we opted for a more traditional filmic looking Numenorian. Once the wash is dried, very carefully edge highlight all the silver details with runefang steel to give them a sharp look and to represent the light hitting off their surfaces. We want a more vibrant burnished look to the Numenorians' gold, different to that of their third age counterparts, to try and best reflect the majesty of these noble men. To achieve this, base coat all the gold details, the sword hilt, wings on the helm, stars on the shield, and any other metallic areas left with Retributor armour. Once the wash is dried, now carefully edge highlight all these gold areas with Sycorax bronze, as you did with the silvers. This will allow the burnished look of the underlayer to show through, whilst also capturing where light would hit off these reflective surfaces, and the overall look will complement the bright look of the silver really effectively. By far the most challenging part of these Numenorian models is creating an effective look to the black tabard and cloak. Whilst you're perfectly able to achieve effective results with one blanket scheme for both these areas, we're going to be painting ours slightly differently just to try and create some subtle differentiation across the model. Base coat the shield panelling and tabard with a mix of Abaddon black and Eshin grey. Keep this really dark. It'll almost look like the black primer, but the darker this initial base coat is, the more effective the look will be overall. Now apply an all-over layer by adding in slightly more Eshin grey to the previous mix. Be careful here not to add too much Eshin too quickly. Remember, we're aiming for black, not grey, so too much Eshin too early will lift the tone too much at this stage. Once the wash is dry, relay with the previous mix, leaving the Nuln oil showing in the recesses. It can be tricky with the tabard to work out where some of the recesses are, so take your time and try to identify these areas before applying paint to give an effective look to the folded crease material. Now we have our base and layer tone sorted, we're going to be adding a small amount of Dawnstone to the mix for the first highlight stage, and apply this in delicate, targeted lines towards the apex of all the folds and creases of material, as well as framing the outer of the shield. Again, be careful not to overload the mix with Dawnstone too early at this stage to avoid any stark, Tron-like looking aesthetics. Continue to add Dawnstone to the mix for the following highlight stage and further define the previous highlights. Keep your brushstrokes as tight, thin and neat as you possibly can to create a natural definition across his robes and a rigid, solid look to the framing of the shield. Finally, apply an extreme edge highlight to the upper and more pronounced areas of cloth and shield plating with pure Dawnstone. This highlight needs to be incredibly tight here so as to avoid overloading the previous few highlight stages. This is a purely optional choice. We added this stage just to add a bit more definition to the flow of the robes and the shield. We're going to be painting the cloak on the reverse of the model with the same method, but instead substituting the Eshin Grey for Storm Vermin fur. This will just help to subtly break up the overall look of the model whilst maintaining the characteristic look of the men of Numenor. Apply a layer now by adding slightly more Storm Vermin fur to the previous mix. Make sure to paint in all the sides, underside and cloak areas hanging down between his legs and the scabbard. Once the wash is dried, reapply the previous mix over the cloak, leaving the non-oil showing in the recesses. Thankfully, in comparison to the front tabard, the cloak here has a lot more defined folds, so applying this stage should be an absolute breeze. Continue to add more Storm Vermin fur to the mix for the next highlight stage. As with the tabard, focus now more on the pronounced and upper folds of material to create a sense of flowing, billowing material and material bunched up around the Numenorian's neck. Finally, apply an extreme edge highlight to the absolute upper crests and folded material with pure storm vermin fur, again keeping your application tight and neat to create natural movement. Carefully pick up the trim around the tabard and the emblem in the centre of his chest with Dark Reaper. Apply a layer now, carefully, with Thunderhawk Blue, leaving the Dark Reaper showing in the grooves around the chest emblem. Now, finally, apply an extreme edge highlight to all the trim and the emblem with Fenrisian Grey. This will complement the look of the blacks and greys nicely and just add a splash of colour to the overall Numenorian. Base coat the hair with Rhinox hide. Apply a layer now with a mix of Rhinox hide and Scrag brown. Once the wash is dried, relayer with the previous mix, leaving the Agrak Thirst shade showing in the more pronounced grooves of hair. Add approximately 50% Deathclaw brown to the mix for the first highlight stage. Apply this to the tips and outer curls of hair to create movement as he charges towards his enemies. Finally, apply an extreme edge and dot highlight to the outer curls and tips of the hair with pure Deathclaw brown. Carefully pick out the inner robes hanging down his side and the underside of the arm guards with Zandri dust. Apply a layer now with a mix of Xandri dust and Karak stone. Once the wash is dried, reapply the previous mix, leaving the Agrak surf shade showing in the most pronounced recesses. Finally, add approximately 25% pallid witch flesh to the mix for the final highlight stage. Carefully pick out all the belts, straps and boots using dried bark. Finally, now applying the stream edge highlight to all the straps and the boots with Gorthor Brown. There we have it, the glory of the men of Numenor who stood defiant in the face of evil on the slopes of Mount Doom.